right, welcome. Little BTS. Things going here. And let's do another invite. I should say, another invite. You know the drill. Gotta look good, you know? Get the beard going. Everything. Of course. Much better, huh? Not that you couldn't hear me, but liking the setup. You guys liking the setup so far? Have you seen the other episodes? Maybe not. Seem to getting in the groove. Getting in the groove. Let's go. Little housekeeping, little arranging. Wait for our guest, special guest, to arrive. It's the anticipation that gets you. It's not good for looks. Where they come from, so they don't. It's always the hurry up and wait, right? Hey.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, there we go. Sounds a little good. Give me a little ABC here real quick.
All right. Test.
Yeah, I like it. Excellent. So once again, I'll remind you, we got some BTS going right now, just to kind of get the setup, and then we'll just get started. Have fun, enjoy. Thank you for being here. So here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Today's special guest I have known for 25 years. Yes, I did have to look at my notes right there for those watching the video because it does not feel like it's been that long. 25 seems like a really big number. But I met this fine gentlemen in college while doing some touring with choirs. We did the roommate stint on tour and lots of delicious coffee. So I would like to give a warm welcome to Mr. Joe Tangen.
Hey, Chris.
How's it going, man? All the way in Pella, Iowa. He's in the heart of the country, doing the things that you do out there. How's the weather out there actually right now?
The weather's actually been pretty decent this summer. Sometimes it can get really hot, but we've had a good mix.
Good.
Especially where we're at. I can't talk for all of Iowa, but for Pella, there's been some times it's been a little warm, but times it's kind of cool. Like earlier this week, it was down to the 70s for a good chunk, and we've had some periodic rains.
Okay, but enough that we'll have our good Iowa corn growing for the fall, because that's really important.
It's pretty high down here right now. I was kind of surprised. They always say knee high in July,
right?
By July, and it was pretty tall in June.
Okay.
And now again, I can't talk for all of Iowa, but for right around here, it's doing pretty well.
Right. Good. Well, that's good. Now, for those that don't know Joe, or even me, if you're watching this for the first time or listening for this for the first time, thank you. We're here in Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. Joe's, like we just said, is in Iowa, Pella, Iowa, where they make some awesome windows. You might have a Pella window in your house. I know my dad was big on them as a carpenter. They're one of the top of the line there. But as I do for guests, I try to do something special for the video, which you can see once this is published. You're watching right now because it will be published. That's the only way you can watch it. Today, I have decided not to change the background. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I add things. Sometimes I take things away. It's kind of like a game. Today, I am dressed for Joe. And being dressed for Joe, I'm going to try to see if I can get this on camera. Probably not. No, it's all the way in the back. I am wearing an official PGA Tour polo, and I have got my Nike hat, plain Nike hat, white with the black swoosh. So I feel like I'm getting the golf vibes, because not only is Joe in Pella, Iowa, not only is Joe a golfer, a very good golfer and teacher of golfing, but a teacher overall. He teaches chorus and conducts choirs. I mean, conduct, is that proper?
Yeah, I would say. Say direct.
I mean, I don't want to. Yeah. I know you conduct a band, but I guess a choir, you're kind of a conductor as well.
Yeah. Yes, most definitely.
Good. Yeah. Okay. So why don't you fill in the blanks there and get into. Let's do the golfing first. So you've been golfing. You were on the golf team in high school. And did all the things. What is it about golf that you love?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say that, of things that I do, golf was my first love. I discovered golf with my uncle and my dad, starting as like a fifth grader.
Oh, wow.
And I played baseball at the time. But I was not very good. My decision making wasn't good. Didn't have the athletic ability. I kind of discovered by sixth grade that, not the greatest at this.
You just needed the ball to be lower.
Yes, and so I decided, not a lot of people golf. I bet if I really dedicate my time out here, I could be good. And so basically, in the summers, growing up in Sibley, Iowa. I would walk out to the golf course and I would just play all day. I would play 36 holes, 45 holes. That was not uncommon for me to do in a day.
Wow.
And I got to a point where I was very driven to play well. And it got to a point where in seventh grade, I was fairly consistent hitting upper 30s on 9 holes. And really shooting well. I started playing in junior golf tournaments at that age.
Nice. And self-taught, right? Like did you take lessons or?
I read some books.
Okay.
I read some good books, and I had a few people along the way that gave me some good hints and things like that. But I really kind of worked on it myself for the most part. and I was very successful as a junior golfer. And then going into high school, my freshman year, ended up going to the state tournament, and
Nice.
I think I was runner-up medalist at sectional and shot like a 74 at districts, which is pretty darn. I look back at that score and I think, wow, I did that as a freshman, and it helped our team get to the state tournament. I was
Nice.
a four-time all-conference member. You had to place in the top 10
Okay.
individually. I actually won the conference in 1996. That story is a very interesting
Do
one.
they give you mini green jackets?
Back then, they just gave you a pat on the back and they said, "Good
You
job."
win. Congratulations. Here's your personal
Yeah,
pan pizza. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I will tell you that the year I won was a very interesting story, I'm not sure how much I should put out there on podcast here, but it's a good one if you want to hear it.
Yeah, it's all the floor is yours.
Okay, so and the way it worked in our conference in high school is that there were 10 teams in our conference. So basically, the golf teams everyone would go to everyone's golf course,
Mm-hmm.
and we would play individually and as a team.
Okay.
And they would take the average of the individuals throughout the entire season, and that would figure out who's the best golfer at the end of the season.
Oh, okay.
And my sophomore year, I was playing pretty well. And about halfway through the season, they would have updates on things, and I noticed I was like right at the top. I was like first, second with someone from MLC Floyd Valley, and so halfway through the season, I was playing with this guy, and he was. I remember I was at like Hull or Boyden. I forget what golf course it was, but he had
Mm-hmm.
like he had a 2-foot putt, and he missed it. And he went over there and he hit it again really quick, and he missed it again.
Ooh.
And we have to keep score for each other,
Uh-huh.
to keep people honest.
Right. Right.
And I asked him, so what did you have? And he said, I had a bogey. I said, no, that was a 6. He went boom, boom, and he argued with me all the way into the clubhouse about it.
Oh no.
And finally, he signed over his scorecard and called it good. Well, anyway, we get to the very last meet of the season, and one of my best friends, and still today, I still see him a lot, is now a math teacher. I asked him, so what do I need to do to win the conference? He said, well, this other guy can beat you by one shot, and you can win.
Mm-hmm.
So we get down to the last hole, and it came down to like a 12-foot putt that he had.
Ooh.
It was like 12, 15 feet. I can't remember. And it was a really good putt, and he just wrung it out. And if he would have made it, he would have won.
Mm-hmm.
And if you missed, But anyway, what it comes down to is if I wouldn't have called him on that shot early in the season, he would have won.
Oh. So yeah, you gotta keep them honest. You first of all, you never think Iowa and golf, right? I mean,
No.
I guess it's golf in every state, but it's not really what sticks out. Football kind of
Yeah.
sticks out,
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
I mean, and
but-
as competitive as that.
But Chris, here's the best part of the story. So, fast forward,
Mm-hmm.
probably 15 years later, 15 plus years later, I'm watching the Masters on TV,
Mm-hmm.
and they mention this name of this caddy, and I'm like, God, I know that name. How do I know that name? And then it finally dawned on me, like, no, it can't be. It can't be the same person. And the person's name was Michael Greller, and so I Googled it.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough,
What?
this guy that I competed with in high school is Jordan Spieth's caddy.
Wow. So is that as a golfer, is that something looked down upon or up? Like like to me, like does it feel it's not a I don't mean failure and failure, but is it a failure that you didn't make it as a golfer and now you're kind of a caddy, or because of who he's caddying for?
I think he's doing pretty well.
Okay.
I think for himself, Jordan Spieth is a fantastic golfer, and it's been kind of fun to see Michael caddying for him and doing such a great job for Jordan. And,
that's awesome. Now, and from my understanding, I mean, they're treated decent. I mean, it's you're on tour, you got to know your stuff and everything, and they make decent money and everything. So. But I didn't know the hierarchy of golf, so I didn't know it's kind of like Michael Jordan being cut from high school but getting to college and then he's on world championship teams, so if he didn't make it in Iowa,
I think those caddies do a lot of work, a lot more than a lot of people think they do. I mean, they're out there looking at the greens. They've got to keep really good records on what they hit, and they're a good psychological, mental support for the golfer out there at the same time. So I think it's a great thing. But I just got a great kick out of the fact
you have your very own I know that guy speech.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where I can say, yeah, in high school I played with Michael Greller, the caddy of Jordan Spieth, and yes, I did beat him. I did get him.
Nice.
So, and I'd love to meet him again. I'd love to say hi.
Yeah, see what he remembers, and see if he remembers trying to cheat. And now, so you had all the success with golf and everything else, but what led you to music? What led you to Wartburg and now being a teacher?
Yep. So I started, my first real experience with making music and getting into music was in junior high. I played French horn in the band. I joined late, but just fell in love with just making music and being part of something larger than myself.
Oh,
and,
cool.
And I look back on it, and that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I felt great about, I am contributing to this band, and I feel part of this, belonging. And I look at what I do today as a middle school choir director, and that's really, really what I try to instill in my kids. And really what I try to do as a director is bring everyone together to make great music together, And that was one aspect. Another aspect of music is in my church. I played a role in this kind of musical presentation, and I did a lot of singing. That kind of started it. But when I got into high school, I joined show choir.
Okay.
And a lot of the reason why I joined, because I had a few good friends, like any activity a lot of kids do. You got friends, you join up in the same thing. And I also thought, well, this might be a great way to meet some girls, right? Let's just be honest. And so I joined show choir. And I had a phone call right before my freshman year that really, honestly, I look at what teachers do and things that they can do that can really make a great difference in kids' lives. And this is a really great example. But I had a new choir director coming in at the time as I was going into high school.
Okay.
And she was doing some organizing in the summer, kind of contacting students and telling them about some opportunities. And in Iowa, we have what we call the All-State Chorus Band Orchestra. Very competitive. And it's very, very cutthroat to make it.
Wow, you never think.
Really honest. But in all honesty, the journey of learning the music and going through the audition process is more valuable than probably making it. It makes you a better singer, a better person going through the process.
Oh, absolutely.
And so this new teacher contacted me, and she just introduced herself, and she said, hey, I'm bringing a group of kids down to Briarcliff College. They had an all-state music camp. It's basically like a 3-day event where you learn all the all-state music.
Okay.
And at first I was like, oh, I'm not so sure I want to do that. And then she mentioned, very smart of her, she said, well, I got a few other people going, and two other friends of mine. I'm like, okay, sure, I could, yeah, I
Tag
could go,
along, yeah.
I could tag along and go out to eat, and yeah, the singing thing, yeah, I guess I'll kind of do that, but when I got there, and I had no idea what to expect, and I remember finding myself in the middle of the bass section, and we just started doing warm-ups, and all of a sudden I heard this sound from the full group, a sound I'd never ever heard of before, and just in surround sound of really serious singers making really great tone. And I just, after like a day or two of that, it just became, I, I
That was
became
it.
addicted,
Yeah,
addicted
you
to it.
fell. You got bit by the bug.
I did, and it's like, wow, this is just so awesome,
And that's so cool because that's how you and I met was in choir. Now, my journey was way different. I will 100% agree with you on the whole performing aspect because as an actor, I learned so much more during an audition or prepping for a casting, or even in rehearsal. Like the gig is the thing, but and you learn you have to have active listening and all that sort of stuff, but you do more on your own when you are prepping for it. So I agree with you 100%. You and I met in choir, but my journey to choir was so weird. I auditioned for the men's chorus freshman year and made it. It was kind of one of those, to be honest, I think if you auditioned, you just got in. Like they were looking for guys. It was all men's chorus, and I was like, yeah, my roommate's in it, so it'd be cool to like do this stuff. I'm not a singer by my definition. I can sing. And so I auditioned for the choir, and that was the thing. They go on all these trips, they do these things. I did not make it freshman year. I was convinced to re-audition sophomore year, and my sophomore year was the big year. Your freshman year, of course, the big Europe trip. 5.5 weeks, 7 countries. I wanted to go. And when I go to audition, I knocked on the director's door at my time. He says, come in. And I immediately do what you're not supposed to do as an actor. I don't know if it's a singer thing either, but I belittled myself. I said, hey, I'm here. I want to audition, but I can't sing. I can't read music. I don't play an instrument. I used to play drums. That's about it. Choir director got up from his desk quietly, walked around, came over to his keyboard, and said, stand over here. If I play something, can you like sing it back to me? And he picked on like a da or an ah, just a random sound. And I said, yeah, I think I can. I'll definitely try. And he played a couple notes, sang it back. And we just went up and he stopped. And he goes, so if I do this, this, and this, can you remember this and do it? And we went on for about 10, 15 minutes. And he stopped and turned around and said, you may not think you're a singer, but I can teach you to sing. You have to have the talent as a bass. And that just shocked me. And I walked out thinking, well, that's the second year in a row I'm not getting it, but at least I learned something. Like, maybe I take some lessons. And lo and behold, I made choir, and we go on the trip to Europe in '99. So have you found anybody in your teaching experience now being on the other side? Anybody like me? Anybody that walks in and says, I can't do this, or I want to, but how do I do it?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I've been teaching middle school chorus for 21 years now.
Yeah.
And I say that number, and it still kind of hits me like,
yeah.
Wow, I've been
how is that real?
Yeah, but I also, I think those that are retired, they would say, oh, you're just a baby yet. You still got a year yet to go. And,
yep.
And but in my 21 years, I've had lots of moments of just absolute joy where I've had kids that, well, let me put it this way. In Pella, I've had a really great honor of being able to be part of this music program and really try to mold the middle school chorus program in a way that I feel has made the program successful and the community very proud of the fact that we have a good quality program. And I think some of the things that I've really tried to instill in this, Chris, is a few things. First of all, those in choir are either in sixth grade choir, seventh grade choir, eighth grade choir. We also have like a bass clef boys choir, a treble clef girls choir that meets, and we also have a show choir. And we could do a whole nother podcast on that. But I'll tell you, the most important part of the program is not the ensembles. It's the lessons that the kids have. So all of my 7th and 8th graders have lessons with me once a week. They'll be in groups of 1, 2, or 3.
Okay.
But I'll have them all, and it's a lot of kids. Like I know I'm looking at next year here, I'll probably have 7th and 8th grade combined about 160 kids that I'll need to schedule lessons for.
Oh wow!
Next year, but we work on some main things like technique. We work on sight reading our music. We work on repertoire. But I think the most important thing that we do in those lessons is I get to know who they are, and they get to know who I am as their director, which is just as important.
Yeah, I agree.
But when you make that connection, when you make a connection with the student in that way, it develops trust, and they will express themselves a whole lot more, in the group, and individually, and I've had some kids come into lessons like just the beginning of the year, and they're like, "Oh boy, what's this all about? What are we?" And it takes a few lessons.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is just developing trust, being really positive. I think being really positive because, and I think you vouch this too, even as an actor, when you watch, maybe when you watch other actors themselves, you can always find something good. It's not even just acting, anything. You can always find something good, something that they're doing right. And I think it's always important when you're teaching that's the first thing that comes out of your mouth.
Yeah.
That after they're done, doing what they need to do or an exercise, the first thing that comes out is you got to come up with a compliment. And it might be as simple as great posture.
Yeah, well, and we were taught, or I've been taught over the years, and since we're not sponsored by anybody, I'm not going to name names of the company, but the big company that I used to work for used to call it the sandwich technique. So if we were training somebody, you would say something nice, something to improve upon, and then something else that's nice. So that you get it in there, but,
Yep. Or in this case, in the music world, we think of it as the 3 C's: compliment, criticize, correction.
Oh, okay. I like that.
And in that way. And I've heard of other ways too, where you even end it with a compliment. So you put another C at the very end of it all, just to make sure that it is overly positive. But you put things in there.
And I think that's important, like with what you're doing is to me, I hear sports as well. So since I didn't really continue any of my singing career, not that there was a career, but after college, I relate it to you're developing the relationships with the players. So like any basketball team, any championship team, you're 100% right. You have to learn yourself individually how to dribble, how to shoot, what your form is, what you're doing. Then you go to the practices and you let the coaches perfect, this is how your arm should be, run like this, look like this, don't tilt your head, you're leaning this way, and fix you to get that championship, and you're doing it for concerts, for show choirs. And so that's why I wanted to have you as well, is kind of to help emphasize that importance of arts. Yes, I'm an actor, and that's cool, but I can't paint. I can't draw, So to have you as a singer, as somebody who works with singers, I think is so important to keep that in the forefront, to that it develops character in students, not just, it's cool to sing, and now I graduated, and I'm going to go be a banker,
Chris, I think a little bit about when our college director and your interview, not interview, your audition that you had. I think part of it is when, and I don't want to speak for him or anybody else on this, but sometimes in that interview process, you're really looking to see if a person is coachable, or is this personality going to be someone that is going to be a great benefit to this group in itself?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think he saw that in you, Chris. I mean, I just know you individually as a person. But
Right.
luckily for me in middle school, I don't audition anything. The only thing that I get anywhere close to auditioning something is when I have to choose students for an honor choir, and I make it as clear cut as possible. I go off of data,
Oh, gotcha.
and that makes it a lot simpler in that
Mm-hmm.
way. But sometimes you have to look at the dynamic of a person to see, is this person going to be good for this organization?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to bring out the best in this choir in that way?
Yeah.
Is this like I said, is this person coachable?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but I've been very blessed the last 21 years, and this is pretty rare. I'm finding out more and more, but I've been in the same place since I left college.
Wow.
When I graduated in '02 from Wartburg,
Mm-hmm.
I started interviewing around Iowa, and I very quickly landed this job in Pella. And when I got an interview here and I saw Pella, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a phenomenal community. I was really excited.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started here, my job was very different. I was teaching elementary music and middle school chorus. I was running between two elementary buildings and running the middle school chorus program. I mean,
Wow.
there were days that I would start at the middle school and I'd go over to Lincoln, back to the middle school, over to Webster, back to the middle school, and that's how my day was, all over the place.
So you were the choral director as well as the fitness coach.
You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was all over the place. But after about 5 years, the program, when I started, there were a little over 100 kids in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade combined.
Okay.
And in about 5 years, it was about 250. So
Wow.
it had grown quite a bit. And also, we were at a point where we were growing as a community. We kept adding elementary classes.
Okay.
And so it got to a point where I didn't have a room in my schedule to add another class.
Yeah, I mean, you only have so many hours in a day. It's
Yeah. And so the other elementary music teacher and myself kind of came up with a proposal to the board. And it was a good time to do it because we were gaining kids in our district. And so they had a little bit more money, and it was a good transition year. But we proposed that basically my job be divided into 2 full-time positions. And they took it. It was like a no-brainer. It needed to be done.
Right.
And so in '07, I was just middle school only.
Now, did you get to pick what you did? Was it like
yes, it was a very obvious answer. I really felt more connected to the middle school. I enjoyed working with that group of the group of kids and that age level,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like it was something that I really worked to build, and felt like that was a little bit stronger there. But one of the things that I'm getting a vibe from that we've talked about so far is the importance of the journey. I mean, you even just talked about it, that it's not just the actual performance that's important. It's how you got there, the things that you learned along the way.
Absolutely.
And this is a really good example of how I learned so much about
Mm-hmm.
teaching music. Was my first 5 years when I taught elementary music and middle school chorus at the same time. I learned a lot about, in elementary music, it's not just singing and games.
Mm-hmm.
There's logic behind everything that you do.
Well, and that's the foundation. I mean, that's like
Yeah.
the start of, you could be having a kid not like music because of
Yes.
you, or love music because of you.
Chris, you nailed it. It is so important at that age. Like, you want kids walking out of that room saying, that was so much fun. I can't wait to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to instill that love for music. And, there's some kids that are just not going to love it. But maybe they can respect it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like me in country music, for instance. I don't love it, but I do respect it.
Yeah, and it's getting
And
better. Like I'm the same. I started out not liking it at all, even because of my history. Um, but it was the sound of it, it was the twang. And now that country music is getting a little more modern, I kind of
yeah,
like it. I still don't like the whole she left with the dog in the truck and those because I'm a story. I mean, as an actor, I mean, the bottom line to it is I'm a storyteller. That's
yes,
my medium is acting, and
yes,
so I love lyrical songs where they tell a story. I want to know what happens, and if you have something in there that, even if it's unpleasant, I mean, I'll tear up to songs where somebody passes away, but they lived their life awesome, or Tim McGraw is great at songs like that for me. Humble and Kind and Standing Room Only is a new song that's been out where he talks about living a good life so that when he dies, or at least the lyrics say, when I die, at my funeral, I want standing room only. And it's like,
mm,
whoa. But it's
yeah,
not like be famous and rich and celebrity. It's I want to forgive, I want to forget, I want to be a good person, I want to have a good heart so that these people want to, send me off. And so it is. It is that journey. It's taking that, and your journey is awesome in the sense that, first of all, kudos for being there for 21 years. That's not a thing anymore. Nobody works for a
yeah.
company for that long. Any
It
any
is rare. I mean, when I look around, I mean, I look around at my middle school now, and I'm the old guy. You know, I'm the guy there that's been there like one of the longest now, and
Yeah.
it wasn't that long ago. I remember these veteran teachers, and I look up to them so much, still do,
Mm-hmm.
because they're just pros, at what they do, and they're
Mm-hmm.
they're all gone, and we got some younger ones in. They're doing a good job. They're doing a good job.
Yeah. Got to
But
pass the
yeah, it's
baton.
it's and the thing is too, a lot of people will jump around jobs.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have three or four
Mm-hmm.
before they kind of settle in a lifetime. And so I feel very fortunate that I haven't had to move around too much
Yeah.
in that regard. But yeah, I feel really blessed, and it's been a really great journey. I mean, I look at everything that I've done, and you have lessons that you learn along the way
Mm-hmm.
with them, and like the elementary music thing, and I still get my elementary music vibe a little bit because I'm the Pella Children's Choir director in town.
Okay. Okay.
So I do have the children's choir, and I really enjoy working with that age group of kids. And then it's not long I'll see them in middle school.
Right. Well,
And
and I
and
was going to
just
ask you, so since you did have some kids your first couple of years, and now for 20 now add 21 years to whatever grade you had them, have you seen any of them 10, 15, 20 years
oh,
later?
oh yes,
Yeah.
okay. I've gotten to a point now, like the last 2 years. I think I had. So when I started teaching, I have had their kids. So
Oh, wow.
yeah. So like some of the kids that I had in my first 5 years of teaching, I've now have their kids.
So if you want something to really make you feel old.
Yes. Yeah, I know. It's one of yeah. It's really fun too.
That's
Um,
that's so unique. And again, I mean, I keep saying this, but it is truly the reason, adding up the reasons why, I wanted to invite you to be on the show is because it is such a you're not average Joe, right? Pun intended. You have something that's unique that you knew. You're a rare breed where I think I consider myself as well. My career is a little less stable than yours, but I knew early on I wanted to be an actor. Everybody laughed at me or was like, "Oh yeah, that'd be great," and didn't believe me. And now that I've finally done it and have so many commercials and TV shows and movies under my belt, they believe me. Whereas you knew early on, hey, this is what I want. Music is important. How can I have music in my life? Oh, singing. Oh, now I want to teach it and kind of give back
yeah.
to those that might be a little Joe in, sixth grade going, I don't know if I want to play golf or sing and they
Yeah.
meet you and they're like, this guy's really awesome. Like he taught me how to crescendo. I didn't even know what that was. I thought I was just yelling loud,
Yeah. I I when I was in college and then just started teaching, in
Mm-hmm.
my early years, there was a transition stage there. In college, it's all about you.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're a music major. I mean, you get your own lesson. The classes are veered toward you. You're in this wonderful ensemble, tours the world.
Right.
There's a lot of individualism there.
Mm-hmm.
And I often find, and I've had student teachers, I won't name any, but I've found that one of the struggles that they have sometimes is that time about having a recital or all that individual stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Those days are ending. It's you now need to turn that switch to now it's time to serve and create that experience for other people.
Right.
But
Right.
and I'll be honest with you, Chris. If I were asked to take one or the other, whether I would be like an individual performer
Mm-hmm.
and go that way as a living,
Mm-hmm.
or be a conductor and work with a group, I would choose the conductor group any day of the week
Nice.
because the satisfaction that I get standing in front of that group, and I've had the joy of not only directing my groups at Pella,
Mm-hmm.
but I've directed several choral festivals across the state. I've been able to direct the state honor choir, which is called Opus.
Okay.
Probably one of the greatest musical experiences of my life, being
Wow.
able to do that. But when I'm asked to do a festival, you walk in to a whole group of kids you've never ever seen before ever,
Mm-hmm.
and you select the music, and you're given a time frame, and in that time frame, you need to get them together, and you need to work on making the best music possible, and
Wow.
giving them the greatest musical experience that you can in that time.
And now you say festival, so in my head, and for those that don't know, that's like a weekend. It's not. This isn't like a year thing.
No, so this would be like a day event.
Oh wow.
So yeah, and sometimes it's really short. The last one I did was a morning, and we had a 1 o'clock concert. So I added up the
Wow.
time that I was in front of this group, and it was a grand total of 2 hours.
Oh wow.
And I had 4 songs, and so I had to be extremely efficient with my time. I had to be very careful with the literature I chose so that it was attainable.
Right.
But I was very proud of the fact by 1 o'clock we put together a wonderful concert, and you know it. The kids know it if it was or not.
Yeah.
They
Oh yeah.
you,
Kids
you
can't really lie.
yeah.
They'll
And so
show it.
yeah, they'll know. They'll tell you. But I get a lot of joy and satisfaction out of doing those sometimes because
That's
it's
that's amazing to me because I can relate, but you got me beat on the whole 2 hour thing because the closest I've ever come as an actor was I auditioned and was cast in a 24-hour show. So
oh wow.
they cast the show at 7 a.m. and you went into audition at like 6 a.m. Then they put up the cast list or announce who's in it in this theater, and at 7 p.m. that night the show goes up. And it's from scratch. Like they kind of cheated a little and started building flats, but that was it. The rest they were building, they were propping, we were wardrobing, actors were acting, memorizing lines. Now, when it goes up, you do your cheats, you have newspapers so you can kind of read your lines or that sort of thing. But that's the closest I've ever come, and that too, I can agree with you, is so exhilarating. Was it
Yes.
perfect? Absolutely not.
No.
But everybody coming to the show to see it knows we did it in 24 hours. And it was like a charity and stuff like that. So it was super cool all around. But I think it's just the fact of once the curtain came down, you have that breath of we did it.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't meant to be perfect and on TV and win Oscars and awards and Tonys, but you did it. Like, we didn't falter where we couldn't fix it. And you bonded so quick with people you just met that morning. So I can imagine the kids you're conducting are, they come from different schools and stuff, so they don't even know each other. But they've got to figure out, oh, this kid's really loud. Like, hey, man, fix this. And, that sort of thing. So kudos to that. That's...
Yeah. And Chris, I think you hit it on the button there, too. I think one of the greatest things that you can do as an individual, and I've learned this as part of the journey in learning, is that you need to be sure that you're not afraid to be vulnerable.
Oh, absolutely.
And make a mistake. Yeah. I find that will very often hinder you from growing. Yep. You have to be willing, and I tell you what, in vocal music, I mean, your voice is such a personal thing. Mm-hmm. And it is, I know when I have kids that come in and have lessons with me, they're sharing their voice with me. Mm-hmm. And I really have to, as a teacher, make sure that they feel comfortable. And but being vulnerable is huge. There was a director up in Luther College, I'll go ahead and say his name, Weston Noble, was there forever. And I remember that was one of the wise things that he said one time at something I attended. Mm-hmm. It was like the number one thing on his list: be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. That's the way you learn. And he said, even at my age, and we all looked up to him as a god, and he said, I still make mistakes.
Even though he was the enemy of our college, Wartburg. For those of you that don't know, Joe and I went to Wartburg College in Waverly, Iowa, and Luther College is in Decorah, and they were our biggest rival.
They were the rival there.
Yes. However,
things have kind of changed.
Well, and I kind of relate it to my being a Bears fan. And so I've said this before, and so publicly I'll say this now to, the tens of people that listen. Being a Bears fan and hating the Packers. I have quite a few friends who are in Wisconsin and like the Packers. And I do recognize skill. I will not, cheer for their team. I will not praise necessarily like a quarterback or two that has been on the team. But I could recognize that, the quarterbacks were good or this person is good and say they got talent and skill. But I don't have to root for them. So same thing with Luther. It was kind of, you go up there, and you're like, oh, man. And so to hear you say that name, I'm like, kind of shimmied a little.
I'll tell you what, some of the pranks between the two colleges back in the day.
Oh, man. The leaflets out of airplanes. I was there when our radio station stuck bumper stickers all over the place. And it was the one and only game that I went to. And, of course, Luther's colors are blue and white. And you can't see here, but it's almost the exact blue and white I've got on my little setup here. And we went to the football game, and their home outfit obviously is the blue because everybody wears white, but their helmets are white. So picture that for a second. These guys coming out in white pants, blue jerseys, white helmets. Nothing written on the helmets. No L, no Luther, no nothing. They look like Smurfs. And so, of course, all of us Wartburgers, we would go for super fans and stuff, and we had more fans than they did 9 times out of 10. And we would just start humming and whistling the la, 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 because it just looked like Smurfs coming out of the tunnel. So... But
I totally forgot about the super fans. That was quite an organization, right?
Oh my gosh, it was so. I was all 4 years. It was awesome. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, but again, then you get through college, you do your things, and then you can recognize, like you said, you got some great advice from somebody who was skilled. That's not to say that Luther is a bad college, because I've never said that.
Good quality music department up there, no doubt.
Yeah. And I hate to admit, too, they've got some pretty good beer in the city. Decorah makes toppling Goliath beer. And, so that makes me sad that it comes from there, but it's delicious, so I will give them props. And that's that's the big part of your story. And the whole point of this podcast, and I kind of keep saying it with each guest just as listeners keep listening and get it in their heads, is connection. So Kurzology is all about connection. Kurzology is all about the story, our individual stories, how we connect to other people, we can help people or listen, and the tales that we have. And so the acronym of TALES, tales, I want to present with you. So it's tests, adventures, lessons, entertainment, and successes. So Joe, what has been over these 21 years of being out of college and teaching, or the prior 18, 19 years before? Not quite, I guess. It'd be what, 12, 13?
Yeah.
You're my age, and we don't want to give out ages, but your whole life, is there a test that you have had that you've found challenging, either in a good or bad
Yeah.
way?
Well, I've had several tests. I think just to pick one does not create a summative of my life at all. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Maybe something that's just notable. I mean, we all have
Yeah.
multiple tests,
Yep.
being.
I can remember, and this is going all the way back to high school. Um, my junior year of high school, I had made the Iowa All-State Chorus.
Okay.
And not just made it, like I made it right away. I didn't even get recalled. I was like an automatic in.
Nice.
Okay. And so, of course, senior year, you got to audition all over again.
Ooh, yeah.
And I honestly was a better singer as a senior than I was my junior year. And I went to audition and had a decent audition. I don't remember anything really that wrong with it. But I didn't make it. I did not get recalled. And that was a pretty sad moment for me.
Huh.
Because it was one of those moments where, like, if you asked me as a senior in high school, what's the one thing that you would want? And I would say it probably would have been that. That would have been the one thing. And
Right.
I worked my tail off for it.
Yeah, and leaving high school, you kind of want to go out with a bang.
Yeah. But one thing a lot of directors, all the directors know, students know, that audition for this thing is that process is not perfect. And I look back on it now, and I'm glad that happened, because it really taught me a lesson that there is never a for sure in life. There just isn't.
Absolutely.
And sometimes things happen in life that don't make sense. Mm-hmm. And you have, I mean, I can remember how I reacted, and I look back on it, and I thought, I could have done a better job. I know I was super sad about it, but I could have acted a little better about it.
Right.
And it really taught me that there's not a for sure in life.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you need to also be able to move on.
Yeah.
You got to learn from it, move on, and also just accept the fact that sometimes just things happen in life that just that are not fair.
You can't always get what you want, and I
Exactly.
think that's a kind of an anomaly, because I think you don't want to get everything you want, because then then you haven't earned it sometimes, or then there's nothing to work for, because you just know, gonna get this role, gonna get in that choir, whatever. There's no challenge. There's no oomph. There's no drive, because you just know you're gonna get it. So I think that's good. Is there an adventure? That's your test. That's something that kind of. What's one of your biggest? Now, you've traveled way more than I have, especially since graduation. But
oh gosh, okay. I wish we had 10 hours. Some of the adventures I could tell you.
Yeah, I feel like every show could be like 4 hours long.
I'm just going to pick one. And this one is just an obvious one. If my son was around, he wouldn't even tell him the story. So last summer, my son, he's going to be a senior here in high school this next year.
Hard to believe.
I know. And he's just a really good kid. I mean that. I mean, he's just a really good kid. But loves the outdoors, loves going camping, loves going golfing, and it just a lot of things I like to do. Mm-hmm. Well, we were kind of looking around at some things, to go out, like go camping and things like that, several years ago. And I told him, like, there's this national park called Isle Royale. It's an island out in Lake Superior where there's no electricity, no running water. You got to boil your own water. Oh. There's trails all the way up and down and around. There's moose on the island, and the only way to get out there is by boat or by seaplane.
Ooh,
and
fun.
we went 2 summers ago. So I've been there twice, okay. Chris. And the first time we just went for 3 days. and we had to go all the way up the North Shore there of Minnesota along the shoreline of Lake Superior all the way up to Grand Portage. And we got on the boat and got out there. It was beautiful, and we spent 3 days hiking around, and then we came back. Well, the next summer we made a goal to go back, but our goal was to hike from one end of the island all the way to the very end.
Okay.
And this was close to, I mean, don't quote me, probably close to 60 miles of hiking.
Okay, one way.
And we were going to be out there for an entire week. All right. Okay. So Thomas and I, we head up there and had a beautiful boat ride up there. And it was, and I'm telling you, people that are listening to this, if you want an adventure, do it. It is just one of the most wonderful places to go to. It's just quiet, and if you want to get away from it all, do it. It's just a great place to go. But the extremes sometimes. So like the first night it was our longest hiking day. Okay. But we hiked close to 13, 14 miles right when we got to the island.
Oh, wow. And I mean, you're almost done.
Yeah. And the ranger said, kind of gave us an update on weather. He said, yeah, today's going to be unusually hot. And so it was like 80 degrees. So it was pretty hot, hiking up there. I remember getting to the campsite. And when you're backcountry backpacking, people know. Yeah. You get to the site and you take that backpack off, you lay on the ground. Yep. You go filter some water and you just kind of you just lay on the ground for an hour.
Take a time out. Yep.
And I remember that night sleeping honestly in my underwear. I mean, there's no one out there, Hey. Just because it was so hot.
It's your own little Walden pond, but it's a lake.
Yes. To the last night, right before we came home, and I remember we were at Rock Harbor out there, and we're in one of these. They have these shelters, which is so cool. They've got screened-in shelters, and you just put a sleeping bag down on the ground. Mm-hmm. But it was so cold. It was 30, 40 degrees. So I went from 80 degrees to 30, 40 degrees. I've got everything on I got.
Oh,
foot warmers, hand warmers, stocking hat, gloves. I mean, talk about extremes, Chris. It's the middle of June,
Yeah.
So anyway, here's the best part of the adventure. What I thought was going to be the easiest day was the hardest day.
Wow. Okay.
So one thing you have to understand about how the boat works on this island is that the boat goes out from Grand Portage and it goes around the north side and it docks over in Rock Harbor, stays overnight there, and then comes back. Okay. So the boat is in Rock Harbor at 8 a.m. I think we left in the morning. And the captain starts leading us on the boat, and he makes an announcement. He said, okay, first of all, everything I told you when you got on the first time, and it's except one thing. He said, this is probably going to be a sit-down trip. And he said, we probably will be expecting waves 10, 15, possibly at the highest 20 feet. And I didn't think, honestly, Chris, I didn't think anything of it at the time because whenever I've driven this boat, I've been on the boat 3 times. Mm-hmm. And it's been peaceful and just no problems. Well, the first hour was fine because we're in a cove, okay?
Okay.
And then we go around the bend and we start making our way. And I'm sitting in the middle of this boat talking with some people in there. And all of a sudden the boat starts going up and down and really moving. Ooh. And I'm like, oh.
This is the time to not be seasick.
So after about a half an hour, I'm like, I don't think I can sit here in the middle anymore. So I got up and kind of sat in the back. And one of the things they tell you on this boat is that if you do need to feed the fishes, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You need to do it off the back of the boat.
Okay.
Well, there was a point where I just couldn't handle it anymore, and there it went.
Yeah.
And now you have to understand this boat ride. it takes about 6 to 8 hours
Holy
to go.
cow. Okay.
Yeah, I know. 6 to 8 hours from Rock Harbor with the stops to get back to Minnesota.
Wow. Okay. I hear here in my mind, I was doing like, a 45-minute,
Oh,
like you're going on the boat from like, Epcot to Studios or something.
no, Chris,
Wow.
I was off the back end of that boat, letting off everything I had
Oof.
for many hours. And I wasn't the only one. We had our own club back there, and
I can I can imagine. Yeah, you started a trend there.
club was very large. And I remember the gal that was the second mate. She came back there one time because we had water coming over the
Yeah. Yep. Well,
She
yeah. If
goes,
it's listing like that,
"Wow,
yeah.
there's a lot of water back here," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we gonna make it?" And I
Oh.
remember we got to the other end of the island, Chris, and we docked, and the captain gets on the intercom and he goes, "Well,"
How is everyone?
and he said,
Oh.
"Hey, we're gonna go up to the ranger station here, and we're gonna get back to you in like a half an hour and tell you what we're gonna plan to do."
Right. Right.
And so I very slowly, with whatever energy I had left, made my way up this hill up to the ranger station and just laid down on the floor.
Oh. Yeah. Need some solid ground. Give me a moment.
Thomas went and got me some crackers, and and anyway, the captain said, "Hey, we're going to wait about 2 hours, and then I think we're going to go." We eventually made our way back to Minnesota, but I didn't have much left by the time I got back.
Oh.
And I remember my son. He said, we got back onto shore of Minnesota. It was such a fun crew. I mean, everyone. I mean, we were feeling awful and everything, but the humor was good.
Yeah, you got. I mean, what can you do? I mean, that's all you can do.
I still remember the one guy said at the end said, "Hey, make sure everyone stays for the puke 22 picture."
Nice.
But we got back to the hotel, and my son, he said, "Dad, I think you better eat something." I said, "That's not what I want to do." He said, "Well, the restaurant closes at like 8 o'clock, and there's nothing available out here." I said, "Yep, you're right."
Do it and be safe.
Yeah. So
now, I mean, that's a really that's an adventure that's kind of up there with adventures I've heard. Was there for lesson now? There's lessons in there. Is there just overall lesson in your life? Is that adventure created the best lesson you've learned, or is there something else in life that
probably not the best lesson I've heard, but probably one of the greatest memories of my life. I've had lots of wonderful, great memories, but that one's just up there. The whole week that I had with my son, and it's a challenge. You put your backpack on every day, and it's like 30, 35 pounds. It's heavy, but the sights, the moose that we saw, jumping into Lake Superior, and it's super cold.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh!
And that's almost a lesson in and of itself, where it's not necessarily a risk. You're not like jumping out of a plane type of risk, but like the risk or the challenge of seizing the day. The whole carpe diem thing, where you decided you wanted to do this hike, you wanted to take this trip, you wanted to visit this island. And I think that's the lesson right there, where you've talked about so many things that you've learned different lessons throughout. That's why it's almost weird to ask for the L and tails for the lesson, because it's just that you've taken those challenges.
And I think the lesson learned in there, a lot of lessons learned, but I think number one there is what I perceived as the easiest day was the hardest.
Yeah, until you experience it. Yeah, perception is everything.
Yeah, and sometimes you just have to be ready.
Yeah.
You never know. You might think you might have a day off from work. It might be the hardest day of the year. You got to be ready for it.
You never know.
Or what you thought was going to be the hardest day of the year was easiest. You know?
Well, and speaking of days off of work, what entertains you? The E entails, right? Entertainment. What entertains Joe? What do you find, entertaining?
Okay, so I thought a little bit about this. I know when you prepped me a little bit.
Right.
And so, first of all, I'm getting older, and I think some people would say, 44, you're still pretty young yet, and I agree. I probably am, but there are things that I really enjoy doing. Number one, I really enjoy spending time with my family. You know, spending time with my wife, my um, all three of my kids.
Yeah.
You know, I mean that's number one. Number two, and that really is my entertainment. I mean, I really do. I mean, it's just spending time with family. Um,
Well, and
Number
there's
two,
there's there's a bigger age difference between your second child and third child, correct?
oh yeah, and that's a whole story in itself. You made
That's I would say that would be my entertainment if I was
me.
watching your family.
So yeah, I probably should tell people about this. I haven't talked much about my family yet, um, but yeah, I have three kids. So I have one that's 17, one that's 14, girl, and then I have a 4-year-old boy. And yep, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
And you know, Ted is our surprise. Um, that and I knew when it happened, Chris.
I would
We
hope
were.
so. I mean,
I knew
you
well.
were there.
Well, when I found out,
Right, right.
we were driving, ironically, to Chicago. We were meeting some friends,
Oh, hey.
and all of a sudden, my wife just says, "Pull over now."
Oh, yep. She's
And
gonna feed the gravel fish.
feed the gravel fish
Yeah.
on the side. And it was at that moment I'm like, "Uh-oh, something's up."
Yeah.
And when I found out for real, like, wow, I'm going to have a third child at almost the age of 40.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you talk about lessons, like sometimes we perceive and we try to make sense of where our lives are going, but honestly, we just don't have control. We just don't.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
I mean, there's a partial control. Obviously, we all know how, or I hope
Yep.
so. Everybody listening knows where babies come from. There is a participation and control to an extent.
Yes.
However, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And so I don't think I slept for like 2 or 3 days just trying to get this new
Wrap your head around it.
wrap my mind around. Oh wow, I mean, like, we had gotten rid of all the toys, everything.
Yeah.
I mean, just, it was all gone. You know, the basement became a game room. That's what you do with kids that get older, right? You know, you get
Right.
a ping pong table, you get rid of the toys. You know, we moved on to that stage of our life, and now we're like moving backwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Now,
yeah.
so then, would you say for the S and tails, just to kind of complete the tails? I'm starting to do this for everything, or every podcast, so I'm going to do it with you too. I'm going to present it as a political journalist, right? They always say, I have one question, and then there's like a million. So I have a question. For success, what is your definition of success? What is your biggest success? And would you say your kids are a part of that?
Oh boy.
So that's my attempt at being a political journalist with multiple questions.
Wow. This is a loaded question.
Well, to make it simple, what is your definition of success? Since everybody's is different.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. You know, I think as I've gotten older throughout life, honestly, I think as I look at it, I look at how have I been able to serve other people, in all honesty.
Okay.
And I know that sounds like, oh, that sounds like a real nice political answer.
No.
But in all true honesty, the older I get, that's really the way I feel, because I feel so much more satisfaction out of serving other people than serving myself.
That's successful. I mean, that's to give back and because I will assume, but I won't put words in your mouth, but I will assume there have been people in your life that have given things to you and done things for you.
Yes.
So it's almost awesome you could do the same.
And it's in many different ways. I mean, I look at how I serve as a dad. I serve as a husband, how I serve as a teacher, and I can just keep going on and on and on with that. You know, but I
part
look
of the community and the choir.
Community. Yeah, I mean, I look at how have I been able to be a good spark in other people's lives, because I know other people have been great sparks for me. I look back and I've got a lot of blessings. From people that have been in my lives in that way. But I get a great joy of being able to serve. And, like I told you, I had a college visit with my son today.
Yeah.
And I had a point today of like, I know we've been saving up for him to go to college, and it's like, yeah, this is what we've been doing this for.
Absolutely.
And then just the advice that we gave him today, and have you thought about this? You've thought about that. But then also, and he wants to go into nursing, and
Oh, wow, yeah.
and you want to talk about a career where you're serving people, where
100%.
it's passing the baton on to him, and I really emphasize to him about how you need to find something in life that you can help other people, that it's going to be satisfying to you. You're going to get up every day, and you're going to enjoy serving other people and helping people, and get great satisfaction out of that. And I don't want to label the world or label things that are wrong these days, but I think a lot of people look at what's in it for me.
Yep.
And they're not looking at how, okay, what's the right thing to do.
Right. Everybody falls. They try to put themselves, as a general statement, in my opinion, is they put themselves in whatever box and then try to make one thing so important. And I think that's why we have so many disagreements currently, or the world is the way it is right now, is because you can be a husband, an actor, a musician, as well as support this political, party, this religion, this group, this, these communities of diverse people or not diverse people or whatever. You can be all these things and still be a good person. If you don't make one thing stand out so much, you can have strong beliefs. You can be an activist and all that sort of stuff for certain things. But if you start falling behind one thing that you're not letting the human side come through, you're just following, it's this statement that I believe, or it's this thing that I, want to force down everybody's throat. That's where we have the problems. And I think you hit it on the head where that's a huge success. You're right now, and just using your oldest son's, and today in college and presenting him with that, and he's made the decision. That's a success for you and your wife. That's something that's huge. You just created a human, you raised the human, and now you're presenting the human to the world to say, go do good, and he's on that path. Like, that's huge.
Yeah, and I wish that for everybody.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things I ask a lot of my middle school choir kids in lessons, like especially when they're just about to go on to high school. And they say, so what do you want to do with yourself? What's the plan? What do you see yourself doing?
Yeah.
And
let them figure it out, without, help them, give them ideas, but you don't want to force and be like, oh, you should do it. No, there's no should. It's find it,
Yep. How can you help other people? What do I think that's really important.
Yeah. That's Danelle's biggest thing. She loves helping people. She loves being able to almost be a master something, whether it's something to train or an idea or something that she could teach, and then help people do it. And I think that's what's going to make the world go round. And I think that's a big reason, like I said, that I wanted to have you on the show. That we've been friends for over 25 years. That we connected while we were in college. All the coffee we drank, all the trips and stuff, which we're going to have as another podcast at some point, because I just want to take the moment right now to thank you for being here. We will definitely have you back. There's so much more to talk about, but I don't want to take up any more of your evening. Get back to that family. Enjoy the conversations that you had with your son and college. But Joe, from the bottom of my heart, truly, honestly, thank you for your time. Thank you for your friendship. Just thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. It was just fun to talk through things. Always great fun to talk to you, Chris.
Absolutely. I love talking to me too. It's sometimes it's the only way that happens. Everybody out there listening, though, thank you for listening. We will be back again. So keep listening keep subscribing, keep liking, keep putting comments and topics and guest ideas and stuff. Thank you, Joe, for being here. Everybody out there, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other, and we will catch you next time.